Dr. Stephen Bass, it's been I sit here with excitement because it's a topic that has come up on many of my adventures. But I would love to first find out, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Ed. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to do this. It's really
awesome.
Exciting.
Steve, do you think that's a question us as men, we answer honestly?
How we do it?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think we've been taught by our parents and our previous generations, as well as social media, movies and all that. I mean, you look at the male examples we've got: Jason Statham, Clint Eastwood, the old John Wayne, quite silent types. They're tough. They can pick up the girls and beat people up, but they can't hold a serious conversation about how they're feeling. I mean, if you asked a guy like Jason Statham, how's he doing? You'd say fine. But if you said to him, how are you really doing? He'd probably punch your flights at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So men, I don't think we are. I think that we're too scared to talk about how we really feel because we think that we're going to be labeled soft. You're a baby or you're a girl. Because you think about how a lot of men were brought up when you fall as a little boy and you fall down. What do your dad say? Stop crying.
Yeah.
You be a man. You're not a girl. Stuff like that. So I don't think that men are in touch with their emotions. So you look at the research with marriages. They say that the marriages that are the most, or you can take it relationships, any relationship, romantic relationship, are the most successful and most fulfilled where the man has a high emotional intelligence. Okay. The problem is most men don't have high emotional intelligence. Women have it naturally, but men don't.
Is that something that's been taught, or is it a bad habit that we've developed over time?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's learned behavior. My simple philosophy is that all behavior is learned behavior. You've learned it from somewhere. Either you've been taught it intentionally or unintentionally. Someone's taught you that you shouldn't be sharing your emotions. So if I ask you how you're doing, as a man, you should tell me I'm struggling. I'm going through a hard time. I do think, though, that there is a lot more enlightenment and understanding. And I think that young guys like you, your generation and the generations below, I think they've become more expressive in that kind of stuff. But I think that it's gone way to the other side, where they have become effeminate. So you've always got the extremes. You've got the hard guys, you don't share anything. Then you've got the way on this side. And we want to try and bring it into the middle, that it's okay to say, I'm not okay. I'm struggling. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't make you less of a man. I think it actually makes you more of a man. If you can be more in touch with your feelings and your emotions, and you're able to express verbally how you're feeling, and I think that's the problem. As men, we don't have a vocabulary for that. So, I do a lot of marriage counseling. And I do marriage talks and stuff and whatever. And so a lot of times you'll hear people say that men don't talk. My husband doesn't talk. He's not a big communicator. And so normally what I'll do is I'll go into the crowd and I'll say, I'll come to you and say, what's your name? And we said, Dylan. I say, what do you like to do? So what do you like to do? What's your fare?
Hunting.
Hunting, okay. So I say, I can bet you if I sat down with you and we started talking about hunting, you'd speak for hours on hunting. So don't tell me a man can't talk. It's just that we haven't learned how to talk about the things that we feel. So, and a lot of times men can't express emotions. That's a nonsense, man. Think about how excited you get when you've got that animal in your sight and you shoot and you hit your target. Or a rugby, take rugby. Look how passionate the oaks about rugby, They'll shout at the ref. They'll express those emotions. But when it comes to actually sitting down with a cup of coffee, how you doing? all of a sudden it becomes like our walls come up.
It does from the other side, from the other perspective. Does it become less attractive from the female perspective? Do you think is that something that's? I know one of the big questions I get asked: Do women fall more in love or less out of love when somebody becomes more vulnerable, more sharing, more not feminine, but more sensitive to their own emotions?
I think that would be. I think it can be an attractive trait when a man is able to verbalize his feelings and emotions in articulate ways and actually have a reasonable discussion. I do think, however, though, that part of emotional intelligence is not only being able to identify your own emotions, but it's also to identify and understand the emotions in other people. And I think that's where we as men fall short. We can't recognize emotions in our partners, and we don't know how to talk to them about how they're feeling. So if you come home and you say to your partner, how was your day? And she says, no, I had a terrible day. The boss shouted at me or whatever. So whatever it was. The tendency for us is to try and fix it and sort it out, because that's what men do. We problem solve. You spend most of your life as a man solving problems. So when your partner comes to you and says, I had a rough day, I did this, our natural instinct kicks in is to just like, okay, did you sort it out? Did you speak to him? You should have done, and we try and solve the whole thing for them. Whereas actually what we need to do is we just need to listen and ask questions. So also another, I don't know if it's a philosophy, but just a way that I like to operate is often I've found that if instead of making statements, judgments or assumptions, you ask questions. So if I say, you should have spoken to your boss, so then that becomes a statement or judgment. And an assumption, because I'm assuming that you haven't spoken to your boss.
Yeah.
Whereas if I said to you, how did that make you feel? What did you do then? Tell me more. Tell me more about what happened. And I can guarantee you now that, a lot of men will say, no, listen, if I speak to my wife like that, she'll chew my ear off. And I say, no. You know why you feel like that? Is because at the moment, a woman doesn't feel heard. That's how women process. They process to speak. We process internally. They process externally. So when they've got a problem, they'll talk to each other about it. That's why women will talk. And remember that for women, everything's connected because they're very connection-orientated, relational and stuff. So when you talk to a woman, when you listen to women talk, what are they talking about? Talking about their kids. They're talking about their families. They're talking about their husbands. They're talking about the family holiday. What do we talk about? What's the first thing that you and I as men will say? Hey, my name's Steve. How's it, Dylan? My next question is, what do you do? Because that's how we engage men. We like it. Whereas women engage it relation. So if I talk to a woman on this level, she's talking to me on this level, now I'm missing it. If I go down to this level here, it's going to bring it up to a manageable level for both of us. And then the woman won't feel the need to just talk your ear off all the time because she feels heard. Often, women don't feel heard. That's why they're constantly wanting to talk. Now, if I can sit down with my wife and say, how was your day? That was a great day. Instead of telling her how bad my day was in comparison to hers. Oh, you think you had a bad day? You should have seen all about it.
Yeah.
But I listen, okay, you had a bad day. What happened? Gee, no, that's not nice, eh? Oh. And look, I mean, having said all of this, and I do marriage counseling every day, I still don't get it right, even with my own wife. I've still got the tendency to say, you should have, and I've got to stop myself and say, okay, hold on, let her talk, What does men's health mean to you? Men's health mean to me? I think it's a very, I work with a lot of men. I do a lot of talks for men, and I think it's a very important topic. It needs to be addressed more openly, and it needs to be addressed. I think it needs to be addressed more directly. I don't think we talk about men's health enough. We talk about women's health. It's always about women and stuff like that, and it's important. But I think men, we've just neglected it because men we've been brought up with the assumption that men don't talk about their feelings. I think that men can talk about their feelings. Because I do. I know you do. I've got a friend that does. Or when we talk on that level. But I must say that in all my counseling, especially in marriages or relationships, I find the men the hardest to counsel, because when it comes to marriages and stuff, and a lot of times even men will have this attitude, I'm not going to go for counseling because no one can tell me what to do. You see, that's a mentality. Yeah. We're brought up with that. Women need their place, men have their place. I remember growing up when I was a youngster in my 20s, I was dating a girl whose father was very like that. I work, I come home, I need to put my feet up, and the wife masseuse. So the woman's in the kitchen, and she does all that stuff and looks after the kids, and I work. That's it. There's no crossovers there. Don't ask me to wash dishes, because I don't ask you to come fix the car. Yeah. And you have that. Now, if you grow up in a home like that, and no one tells you otherwise, you're going to perpetuate that same cycle. So you will then... So what are you going to do? Have you got children?
Yes.
What have you got? A boy, girl?
I've got a little girl.
A little girl. Okay. So what are you going to teach her? You're going to teach her that it's important to express your emotions, and it's important to make sure that you're with someone who hears and understands your emotions. If you have a son, what are you going to say to them?
He needs to toughen up and become a man.
Yeah. But you probably won't. You'll probably have a softer approach. You're wanting to be a man and to be strong and tough, but you'll also teach him what you've learned about how to express your emotions.
Steve, it's a difficult one. I don't know how to start this question, but we've shared just very briefly of my men's health story and stuff. We're sitting with a dilemma at the moment in the hunting fraternity, especially amongst PHs, where there's an 80% divorce rate at the moment. It's huge. It's massive. I can't help but think that there are a number of examples that lead up to that. But in the same breath, I can't help but think that there are a lot of external factors, such as, you mentioned it earlier, social media and all these sort of things. How important is it that you as an individual have got to want to do the work, to self-dive within yourself and pull yourself through these dark periods?
I think that self-reflection, self-understanding, and self-examination are important. However, I think that you've got to be careful with that, because you can end up what they call navel gazing. You just end up stuck in your mental state and just looking at how bad you are. And so often you find that when you're talking to people who are struggling with depression or things like that, they've got a very low self-esteem, they've got shame attached to it, they've got a very low confidence within themselves. So there's a lot to do with negative thinking. So they've got a lot of I'm not good enough, I'm never going to make it, I'm a failure, there's something in me that's not just quite matching up to the reality. So often what we do is we put masks on there. Do they say in psychology, they say that you can only hide yourself for 3 months. So you can only keep a mask on for 3 months. After those 3 months, that mask's going to come off. So you might know me and you're like, yeah, Steve's a nice guy. But after 3 months, you actually realize, gee, this cycle is not so cool because I put my mask on for you. Now, I don't do that because I don't like to operate like that. So when you meet me and you get to know me, that's just who I am. You either like me or you don't. And that's it. And that's what happens, is that you can become so inner reflected, is that you don't have the ability to actually relate to other people, because anytime you relate to them, it becomes intimidating. And so you go into this whole cycle of, I'm not good enough, so I can't sit here and talk to you because you're a professional hunter, and so I can't match up to that. So there's always this comparison. And internally my head is saying, you're not good. Why are you doing this? Who are you? So I had to start struggling with that, because I failed twice at school. I was in special class. And so I never did well and things like that. So I had a very, very low self-esteem. I struggled with rejection and stuff. And I think that I was depressed in my 20s even. Because my 20s were really, really a dark period of my life. And I definitely was depressed, but it was undiagnosed. You're talking the 80s. So it's like, you don't talk about depression. I think my dad was severely depressed. Okay. And I think my mom was also depressed, because my dad never engaged with us at all. He never spoke to us about anything. I can't ever remember my dad saying to me, hey, I'm proud of you, or well done, or how was your day? What's going on? How are you doing? Never spoke to us about anything like that. And he was a very moody, sulky kind of person, which I adopted. And I think that I carried that depression for a long time, but just didn't realize it. And I masked it because of my extroversion and my, I like to joke around and, stuff. So you mask it. So you put that mask on and people think, oh, he's such a fun guy. But actually when I go home, I'm very lonely. I cry myself to sleep sometimes at night, because I just didn't feel, I always felt like I wasn't good enough. So the problem is that when you have that introspection like that, you are unable to actually get out of it yourself. I think it's very important for you to at least have someone, at least one person. If you can have more, it's great. But if you can at least have one person that can walk alongside you and understand that, and not tell you to just pull yourself towards yourself, just snap out of it. Because that's the big thing with depression. It's changing a lot now, but that was the big thing, from my generation and my parents and that. Like, you don't talk about that. If you're feeling moody, just snap out of it, man.
Yeah.
Go and have a beer. Go and chat to your mates. Go and play darts. Go and do something. I don't know what, go and do something. And that helps for a while, eh?
Yeah.
But you come home, you still, that loneliness, so no matter what you do, you can't take that loneliness away. Because I'm sure you've experienced this, you can be in a crowd and still feel completely lonely, alone. Because you're like, and everyone's, hey, how was the last hunt? You're like, it was awesome. You always check this. You should have checked the photo bomb of that rhino. Check this photo. And everyone's like, yes, that's cool. But you go home, and then your partner has to experience the down, because now you've expended all of your energy, and now there's nothing left. You come home, and there's very little left for your partner and your child.
But there's also, it puts you in a very difficult situation. And what you're saying is so true, because I saw it in myself a lot of the time. Was you go out and you're constantly hunting with clients and you're having interactions with animals. There's a lot of emotion that goes into hunting. There's empathy for the animals. There's a lot of conversations back and forth with your hunter, with your tracker. There's a lot of opportunity to mask exactly what you're feeling. You get home and you walk into the room and your child's crying, your wife is upset with you, there's hardly any food on the table. You quickly want to go back to your comfort zone and run away from the conversations you're meant to be having with one of the most important people in your life.
Yes.
What was one of the key tools that you used to either make you realize that, right, hang on, I'm in a hole here, I need to get out? Or what were the tools that you used to get out?
Look, my wife, she's an amazing woman. I would do men's conferences and I'd talk about my wife, and people would say I'm lying. I'd making stuff up, Because I'd say this, my wife is such a balanced person, and she's never in a bad mood. Never. She's never grumpy. She never moans about stuff. And people think, nah, please. What about that time of the month? My wife never. She doesn't. I could never tell you what time of the month it is for what, because she just never gets moody. Never. The only time she would ever get moody or upset was when I caused nonsense. And most of our, only 90% of our fights were because of stuff that I did, because of my stuff. So when she met me, I was, in 97 we met, and I was severely burnt out. I'd just been working in Zimbabwe for 2.5 years, running a campsite for children, doing environmental education because I love the environment and animals and stuff. And I was working at a campsite there, and I loved it so much. I just worked myself, and I didn't realize it. So when I came to East London, I was burnt out. I was depressed. I didn't realize I was depressed yet at that stage, but eventually it kind of like came to when someone said to me, you're probably depressed. And then I eventually went on medication for a short period of time, and I saw a counselor and started working around that. And I'm in a Christian ministry and stuff, so I worked a part of that, and I actually stepped out of that, and I became a security guard at a spa for 6 months, and I just stepped out of it completely and stuff. But one of the big things for me was my wife, just the compassion and gentleness. But I'll tell you something now, also the firmness that she had.
Okay.
You cannot behave like that. You cannot, because my temper would get the better of me a lot. Still does, but not as much as it used to. I will not allow you to behave like in front of our daughter. At that stage, we only had one daughter. If you are going to behave like that, you need to go somewhere else. You go to the other room and stuff and just take Tommy. I'm not going to allow you to behave. You need to sort this out. And so the problem was with that is that I withdrew, and she just, because she's a strong woman, so she just carried on. Then our second daughter came along, and she nearly died. So she ended up in hospital for a couple of weeks, and she nearly died. And my wife said to me at that stage, I was completely out of it. But because it was so severe, she had to include me, and it forced her to pull me out of that and get me involved and stuff. And then one of the big things for me was prayer and my studies and things like that. And I developed a counseling, a prayer process that I use in my counseling practice, which I took myself through. So there's a lot of prayer involved with that. But I would say that was one of the aspects. But I think that, and I know probably my Christian friends wouldn't like me saying this, but I think that was an important part. The prayer in the Bible said, but my wife and my daughters played a huge role in that. Sure, I'm getting emotional. What a lie. But a lot of people ask me, how do you do, because I counsel every day. And so they say, how do you do what you do without getting like depressed or whatever? And I say, there's two major things. It's my wife and my daughters. So when I come up, because my counseling is downstairs, if I come upstairs, my wife and my daughters were the calming, because we had very little problems with our daughters. They both grown up, they're 23 and 20 in the varsity. But we had very little discipline issues with them or stuff like that. So when I come up, I don't have to now solve my marriage problems, because my wife, she'd often say to me, stop comparing, because I'd say, are we okay? Because I'd come from a session where this couple are just like all over the place, and I'd come up and I'd say, love, what about you? What do you think about it? Say, hey, she'd say, stop comparing our marriage. Right? So for me, a big aspect of my mental health and well-being is my wife and my daughters, because they play a huge role in that. And I think that's a thing that you've got to find someone that is going to not just let you and criticize you and But understand, but also be firm and say, listen, I understand that you are struggling, and I understand you are depressed and that you are, but you cannot behave like that. We cannot talk like that, and you cannot lose your temper like that. And my wife would do it calmly. She wouldn't be shouting or nothing. She'd just do it, but further, you can't do that.
Do you think she understood?
Yes. I think as much as anybody can, because I don't think that we can fully understand what other people are going through. As much as, I've struggled with depression. You struggle with depression. I can't say that I fully understand what you've gone through, because you've gone through a totally different level of depression to me, and I don't know what the contributing factors were to that depression and how long and how deep it was. Only you know that. So any problem that a person goes through, I can't really say I understand what you're going through. I can understand a little bit. I can empathize. I can say, look, I struggle with that as well. Tell me a little bit more about your story. Let me hear a little bit more about you. So when I start asking you questions and you say, then it helped me to understand a little bit better, and then to empathize a little bit more, not sympathize, but empathize with you a little bit more, and then try and, okay, I hear what you're saying, okay, have you tried this? What about this? What about that? But I think that my wife understood depression to a certain degree, but I don't think that a person can fully understand that.
You spoke a lot about your daughters, and while you were getting choked up, I was getting choked up because my daughters also had a very influential impact but she's 6 years old. The conversation with them it's a very difficult one when you're all going through those bad spots. And you can't expect them to know, especially my little wife, she's only 6 years old. I can't expect her to understand it.
Yes.
But is there a comforting factor just knowing that you've got such a great support system behind you?
Yeah.
And you can move forward. Is that an important factor for a lot of us men?
I think it's a huge factor. They say they're joking, behind every successful man there's a woman. And I think that we need to understand that a lot of times there is. And I think sometimes there aren't, I think that sometimes beyond a successful man there's a critical, and the same way, beyond a successful woman there could be a man that's cheering her on and stuff like that. I think there's always the differences. But I would definitely attribute my success to my wife. I would never be where I am right now if it wasn't for my wife, and what she did, how she understood, how she helped me, how she encouraged me, and allowed me sometimes to just, like, if I was in a mood, she'd just say, okay, that's fine, just take your time. And that's why, I think the negative side is that's why the man cave originated. Go to your man cave. So, so what you want to try and do is, what I've tried to do over the years, is to actually say, you know what, depression causes you to move away from people. I think that may be one of the ways that I can overcome that, is actually to do the opposite, and to force myself to engage on a level and to tell my wife, this is where I'm at, this is how I think, but I want to stay connected. I don't want to disconnect. I want to connect. So what I did was, I said to my wife, I know that I speak to you disrespectfully sometimes, because I can be very sharp and very short and irritated sometimes. I'm much better than I was. This is many years ago when our girls were small. And I said to her, I want you to when I do that, I want you to tell me. Because there's three things that you've got to look for with people. Is significant self-esteem and security. Anytime that significant self-esteem or security is treated badly or taken away, you're going to have a problem. You look at anything, when people talk to you and make you feel insignificant, you're stupid, you're dumb, what's this podcast, this is pathetic, what do you think you're trying to do? Well, it's insignificant to her. Then that breaks your self-esteem now, and it takes away your security. Anytime you do that. So I said, well, I need to change the way that I respond to her. So I'm going to say to her, anytime I do that, I want you to call me and tell me, I don't like the way you're talking to me. However, the key with that is to ensure that you respond correctly to her when she does that, because I didn't always. Like, she'd say, babe, you've been disrespectful or whatever. And I'd say, well, leave me alone. Okay. And that's unfair, because I've asked you to do that and do it. So I got better at that over the years and allowed her to think. And then I would say to my daughters, so they were a little bit uncomfortable as they got older, and my wife would say too as well. But I would say to them, how am I doing as a dad? Is there something I'm not doing that I should be doing? And is there something I am doing that I shouldn't be doing? And then I'd let them tell me that, and then I'd try and change it. I'd work on it. Dad, you do this. Okay, fine. I'll try and work on that. And there was a tension between myself and my daughters to some degree, because I can be very, like I've said, very quick with my responses and quite sharp. You know? So I've tried to learn over the time, instead of to react to what they're saying, I've tried to respond by hold on. Like when my youngest daughter, they weren't allowed to date until they were 18. And so she never dated, but she was asked to a matric dance. Now, my oldest daughter went to a matric dance, but she went with a guy that we knew. Now, my youngest daughter comes and is going to talk to me about a guy that I don't know. And my first reaction is, this is not happening, pal. You know what I'm saying? It's not a shot. You must get this T-shirt. I've got a beautiful daughter. I've also got a gun, a spade, and an alibi. So I'm going to wear that when the guy comes to talk to me. So I'm like, no, what you talking about? No, you can't go. No, what you mean you're going with a guy? No. And my wife's like, hey, just calm down. I'm like, not a chance. This is my daughter you're talking about here, my youngest. So I had to apologize and say to her, look, I'm sorry, but this is the first. You must understand that you're the first, because Lauren, I mean, she went with the guy that we know the family, that was just a friend. So I said, okay, no, but this guy, I must meet this guy. She said, are you serious? I said, of course. There's no ways I'm going to allow you to go to a dance with a guy I've never met. Yeah. So, okay, we'll meet him at a neutral venue and stuff like that. Huh? And so that happened. But then there was another, a couple of months later, she was going to another dance with, and I'm like, I had to just temper it a bit. And I sat and I looked at her, okay, yes, who is this guy? Okay. She said, and I know you want to meet him. I said, yes, that's right, I'll meet him. I tell you what, I'll drop you off when I pick you up after the swimming thing. She went to some friend's house. He's going to be there. Okay. Let him come out with you and I can just meet him. Okay, fine. And that's what I did, you know. And that's how, but my first reaction was like, so I had to learn to kind of like be careful how I would react and respond. And it's learned behavior. But remember that any behavior that you learn, you can unlearn.
I can't help but think back to a video that I did the other day about self-conversation and self-awareness. One thing I had to learn was, my story is a little bit different to yours in the sense that once I got back from Riverview, the rehab facility, I was kind of like left on my own. My wife had left me. My daughter was with her. I was heading over to Spain to do a month. But I made a decision in that period, and I learned a lot from the Riverview experience. Was all about self-reflection and self-communication through conversation. And just like you would have a conversation with your wife, I was having that with myself, because I needed to understand that I was lying to myself a lot of the time. And you do. You tend to either run away from the truth in your own head, or you tend to try and divert what the truth is to make yourself feel a little bit better than what the actual situation is going on. So how important are these conversations to come out in a, you have to try and, like you said, you have to try and what can be taught can also be untaught. But for somebody that's going through depression, they've taught themselves in the negative way for so long. How difficult is that period where you have to teach yourself to have better conversations with yourself going forward?
I think it's important to get people alongside you. I think you need to have someone that can help you with that, because I don't think a lot of people, especially in depression and even with anxiety, stuff like that, there's no... Let me say this, the problem that we have in society, I think, and this is quite a controversial thing, but we overly medicate. So you go to the doctor and you say to him, "Doc, I'm depressed. I think I'm depressed." "Why do you think so?" "Oh, I don't want to work. I'm tired." And, whatever you give all the... Okay, now, son, what does he do? He signs up, "Okay, take this," or... Then it doesn't work. You go back, "Okay, well, try this one. Because so a doctor, a psychologist, psychiatrist, pharmacist, they work on the medical model. The medical model says that everything that happens to you is either disease or disorder or syndrome. So how do you deal with a disease or disorder or syndrome? Through medication. So they always put you on medication. So the problem is that, and I know that this isn't true of every doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist or whatever, but often when you go to a doctor or someone like that, they will give you medication without suggesting that you go and speak to someone. And I think that it's important for you to find a counselor or psychologist or whatever that can help you learn to reframe your thinking. Because I think with depression, it's a natural thing to go into yourself and to talk negatively to yourself, because a lot of the voices that you've heard before in the past have been negative. You're not good enough. You're never going to make it. You're a failure. And sometimes you might have failed at stuff, and so it just reinforces that. Rejection. So you get rejected by girls, and it just becomes a thing. So you feel like rejected all the time. Any relationship, you go for a job interview, you get rejected. And so it just reinforces all those things, and you start to think, okay, well, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to, succeed at something or whatever. So to have someone say to you, okay, well, take those thoughts and now reframe them. A lot of times people don't know how to reframe it, so then you need someone to help you to reframe it. So when I'm stupid, I'm so stupid, or I'm dumb, I'm a failure. Okay, reframe that into something like, because the minute you say, "I am," so I even encourage people to say, don't say, "I'm depressed," or "I'm anxious," or "I'm an alcoholic." Because the minute you do that, it becomes your identity. So what are you? You are a father, you are a husband, you're a hunter, you're a podcaster, or an influencer. Well, that's what you are. You're not depressed. You're struggling with depression. You're struggling with anxiety. You're struggling with alcohol, whatever. So rather take that thing and make it an external. So now that's the problem I'm now dealing with, because then I can get my partner alongside and say, okay, this is the problem. I struggle sometimes with my moods, and I sometimes struggle with depression. I need your help to help me deal with that in ways, or I need a counselor to walk alongside me, or a friend or someone to walk alongside me and to help me to reframe that. I think it becomes, I don't think that you are unable to do that on your own. I think that there are people that have done it. I think, though, it does become a lot easier if you do it with someone else. If you've got someone, a trusted friend or partner, that can help you with that. So a lot of in fact, most of the books that I've written have originated out of a crisis in my own life. So the first book I wrote was called Radical Dads, which was because of a crisis in my parenting, because I realized I wasn't a good father. I was becoming just like my dad. who I talk about in the book as being there's 4 types of fathers, and the one that is like my dad was a runner, ridiculer, recluse. So the recluse is physically present but emotionally absent, and I was becoming like that. So I developed daddy-daughter calls, and so I would sit on the bed with my daughters, they were 6 and 9, and I would use these cards as a discussion starter. So they're discussion starters. So how was your day? Who did you play with? Whatever. And they were important, and it was just the 3 of us. My wife would leave us, and just my daughters and I would sit, and that became a nightly thing for us. And we, even when they got into their teenage years and even in their adult years, they didn't call them daddy-daughter cards, but they called them discussion starters. So Dad, we haven't one of those discussions. And so often my girls, even when they were like 19 and 20, they'd sit at the bottom of our bed, and I'd get some of my cards out or a book or whatever, and we'd go and we'd just talk about these discussions. What that did was it created such a close connection with us that our girls spoke to us about everything. In fact, there's one time where my youngest daughter spoke to me. She'd only talk to me about her problems when she was 12. And for a short period of time, she wouldn't even talk to Maddie. She'd just talk to me. And then it switches over. The next book I wrote was Radical Marriages, because I realized that my marriage was not good because I was being the husband I was supposed to be. Now I'm trying to counsel couples and come upstairs, I say, listen, man, you need to talk to your wife more, and you need to be connected. Like, get upstairs and my wife, just leave me alone, And I realized, whoa, hold on a second. This is not good, eh? So that's the key now, is when someone holds the mirror up and you look at it and you see, okay, whoa, hold on a second. I've got a skew nose. Or maybe I should do something about it. No, forget them. I don't care what people say. I'll get that attitude. You're going to live the rest of your life with a skew nose, and everybody's going to laugh at you and make fun of you. And then you're going to be grumpy and mad and criticize people for, what I mean? So if someone holds the mirror up to you, or if you hold the mirror up to yourself and you don't like what you see, then you must change it in some way, because it's your responsibility, not mine or your partner's. Not my wife's responsibility. One of the 7 forms of trust is emotional predictability. You cannot trust a person who is emotionally unpredictable. So if you are emotionally unpredictable, it's your job to fix it, not your wife's. Not my wife's job to fix my moods, my attitude. She just said to me joking last night, because I was saying something. She said, yes, you're moaning. I got a reputation, unfortunately. I went on a trip with some friends, and there's stuff happened. Then my one friend to me said, he pulled me aside and he said to me, stop being a grumpy gnome. Go and sort it out. So I came back from that, and he dropped me off, and he said, did Steve tell you he's a grumpy gnome? So then I got to think I'm a grumpy old gnome. So recently now, a couple of years ago, I said to my wife, I'm not a grumpy old gnome anymore. She says, no, you're just an old gnome. I lost a grumpy. But sometimes I can still be grumpy. But I've worked on it, because I've taken it. Because when my daughters or my wife, because I've said to them, how am I doing? What do I need to change? They've said, Dad, you do this. Okay, fine, I'll work on it. You are grumpy, you complain, you moan, you whatever. Okay, fine, I'll work on it. I'll try and be better. If someone's going to hold that mirror up to you and say to you, this is what you need to say, you need to say, okay, yes. Not my wife has been critical or my daughters are critical. No, okay. If that's a thing that you are struggling with, and someone says to you, but have you ever thought about the fact that you might be depressed? And say, stuff that, no, and you got that attitude, you're going to struggle for the rest of your life. If you're not willing to take someone alongside you on this journey and to help you and encourage you and to lift you up, and sometimes be critical in a healthy way of stuff that's going on, and take it and say, okay, this guy's got my best interest, and my wife has got my best. So when my wife says something to me, I know that it's coming from a good place. She's not being critical for the sake of being critical. She's saying to me, Steve, well, I'm sure she calls me Dr. Steve. Doctor, no, I'm joking.
Steve, do you think your self-reflection, your rebuilding of this person you've become has had a positive impact on the ones that have had such an impact on you? on your wife. And I'm not talking about from a relationship point of view, because that's evident. I'm talking about from a personal point of view. Have they become more honest with themselves as well when dealing with certain situations, when approaching you?
Look, I think Mandy, my wife, has always kind of been like that. So she's quite in tune with things and stuff. And we've had very little issues around that, you know. She does, she's not a very big communicator about her feelings and that, because she's the type of woman that just does, she goes on. I mean, you know, she's got neuralgia. So neuralgia's like the nerves on your head or get exposed that you can't even touch the head, and then goes down into her face. It causes immense pain.
Okay.
And she had it for months and said nothing about it. Didn't even go to the doctor, and she just suffered with those headaches and that pain. Never complained, never moaned, never changed her attitude, nothing. Eventually went to the doctor and said, no, you've got neuralgia, you need to be on medication. So she just keeps on going, and she's a very strong. So if I have to ask her how she's, I've got to be very aware that I need to ask her, like for instance, with both our daughters going to varsity. I thought it would hit me harder than it hit her, but it actually hit her harder than it hit me. I was not looking forward to because both of them went at the same time, and I wasn't looking forward to that at all, because I love having my girls at home, and I would love it if they never ever get married and just stayed with me, which isn't right, but that's how I feel. So I thought, gee, when they go, I'm going to take straight, because I mean, Lauren, my oldest daughter, stayed at home and studied through UNISA, so I'd see her every day. We'd talk and chat and have lunch together, and she'd make me lunch sometimes or whatever when I come up from counselling. She was always there. Now she's gone. Empty house. I come up every day now to an empty house. I'm alone at home. So I thought, yeah, it's going to hit me hard. It didn't hit me. And then I had, later on, it was probably around about March, April, I realized it was actually, that actually impacted Mandy more than I realized. And I hadn't observed that and been sensitive to how she was feeling about it. And we had a discussion, and I realized, you know, that my daughters, I think, have become very self-aware, and that because we've allowed them to express their feelings and their emotions in healthy ways and stuff. I've often said to them that they're not disrespectful or rude or anything, but they'll speak about things that I would never have said to my mother. And I often have said to them, and I mean, we joke about it now. They said, "Yeah, Dad, I know if you said that to Granny, you would have got beaten." I said, "Yeah, yes, you know, like they'll make a comment. I'll say, gee, yeah, it's I'll take it, you know, it's fine. But if I'd said that to my mother, I would have woken up in hospital. Like the one guy said, you know, growing up we had those dial-up phones, you know, and when the phone rang, you'd have to answer it. And my dad would just sit on the couch. So the guy said, well, why don't you tell your dad to answer the phone? He said, if I told my dad to answer the phone, I would have woke up with the phone inside of me, you know, that kind of stuff. But my daughters, I think, I think they are pretty self-aware and stuff about their feelings and their emotions. My oldest daughter especially, I think she struggles with it if she feels that she's not being heard. So if you're talking to her and you talk over her, or you just brush her comments or her feelings aside, she struggles with that, you know. So I think growing up, they have, you know, because I talk to them a lot, because of what I do and stuff, and because I've opened up. I think the father has got a very, very important role in the development of a child's self-esteem, both boys and girls, you know. And your daughter needs to hear from you that she's beautiful. I'll protect you, and I'll keep you safe, and I'll always be there for you. So that's why I will wake up. She woke my daughter about 2 or 3 years ago. Lauren is my oldest daughter. She's very scared of any kind of insect, cockroaches or something. So she'd scream, "Dad, there's a cockroach in my room," you know, and I'd have to go and kill it. And there were times when I'd say to her, come on, man, you're 21 now. You need to be able to kill a cockroach yourself, But I would get up and I'd go and kill that cockroach. 3 o'clock in the morning, she woke me up one day, 3 o'clock, Dad, I think there's a gecko in my room. Turns out it wasn't a gecko, it was a rat. But anyway, 3 o'clock in the morning, we're trying to catch this rat. So I said, I'll do that for her. Why? Because I want to show her that I will protect her, I'll keep her safe. Because this is what you're going to do. Dylan, you must remember this. You are going to form an emotional grid for your daughter to see what men are like. And the way that you treat her mother is a key thing. Because she's going to observe, she learns how to be treated by a man by the way you treat mom. And she learns how to respond to men by the way mom responds to you. So if you you shout and you scream, you're disrespectful, and you ignore her and you that kind of stuff, she'll get an emotional grid that's negative. And the first man that comes along that shows her a little bit of love and concern, she'll attach herself to that man. And inevitably, it's the wrong kind of man. If you get a healthy emotional grid where there's healthy touch, time spent, so I did a lot. Like even now, my daughters, they'll still come sit on my lap, they'll hug me, they'll kiss me in front of their friends. They'll do this. A lot of girls won't do, because I cultivated that from when they were young. So a lot of times people start like especially fathers, they'll start at a much later stage because they want to think that the child, a teenager now, can talk. Or they do the opposite, is they don't have any kind of relationship, but when the child gets to 10 or 11, they start developing a relationship. But when they start to get to 13, especially girls, their body starts to develop, most men pull away from it because they don't know how to deal with that kind of stuff.
Steve, sorry, can I stop you there? This is a very important topic, and it was one that I was going to touch on, but since we've got into there now, the father's absence from home, does it have a negative effect? As professional hunters, we away from home. I mean, I often refer back to my 2021 season because that's the worst it's ever been, more than 200 days of the year. Is that, it obviously has a negative impact on the child, or any child developing through. How can one maybe interact or better themselves in that absence not feeling so large?
That's a very good question, because I think that the fathers, the one father's the recluse dad, like mine, physically present, emotional. Then there's the runner. The runner dad's always busy. There's always, so what you'll have the tendency to replace your presence with presence. So you can buy them gifts and make them. Children spell love time. It's time spent with them. Now, every relationship that you have, doesn't matter what relationship it is, built on a thing called a love map. Your love map is built up of things, connection, time spent together, how well you know the person, the memories that you create. And those things can only be done by spending time with them. Do you know that 20 minutes of carpet time a day with your child gives them a 70% less chance of being involved in peer pressure? 3 meals a week with your child as a family gives them a 75% less chance of being involved with drugs and alcohol. Unless you dop meals. Unless you dop at the meal. But 3 meals, yeah. Just 3 meals. So you can make those absent times. This is how you can do it. Is that when you are there, you give them quality time. It's them and them alone. Spend time with your wife, you spend time with her, but it's important for you to start to call, because remember that you can't have a relationship with your daughter through your wife. You've got to have a relationship with your daughter on your own. Your wife, her mother's relationship with her must be her relationship. Your relationship with her must be your relationship. You can't have it through your wife. So you've got to start cultivating that and saying, okay, when you spend time with your daughter, you spend time with your daughter. So take time out, take her out, go for breakfast together or something. And I remember when I did that with Lauren, I think she was only 4. She spent the whole time saying, where's mom? Is mom coming? Is mom going? Is that mom there? So eventually phoned me and I said, listen, you better come because Lawrence is asking for you. But eventually, over time, I did it now when the girls are on it. I'll take them out individually for breakfast and milkshake together, pay for. And it's a fantastic time. If you start doing that now, you'll have daughters that will want to spend time with you. Even now, my daughters are 23 and 20, and they enjoy spending time with me because I started when they were young. If I try to only start building a relationship with them now in their 20s, I wouldn't have a relationship with them. So you got to say, okay, when you have got that time, make sure that you think. So if I phone you up and say, hey, bud, I hear you back from your out, let's go. And you say, Steve, I'm sorry, man. I've got an important... Not that you mustn't cultivate, obviously, your friend, but I'll tell you something now. There are only a few relationships that are very, very important. And those are with your parents and with your spouse and your child. Those relationships are fluid. They can come and go. Your mom and your dad and people like that, or your brothers, and those are important relationships. Work on those relationships. But the most important relationship is your wife and your child. And cultivate, spend time. Even if you've got to neglect, look, I can't do it this time, maybe next time we can go for a game of golf. But right now, I need to spend time with my daughter. And I'll tell you, it doesn't have to be the whole day. It could just be a couple of hours. If you take your daughter out and you go to her favorite place that she loves, wherever that is, and you have a meal together, and even if you're sitting there and she's at the Spur or Steers, and she's playing on that playground most of the time, but you're sitting there on your own, you can be on your phone, you can be looking at stuff or whatever, but it's just you and her, and she's there playing and she's having fun. She comes back and she chats a little bit, does those things. She only comes back to eat. Those times for her, even though she may not remember those exactly, but what it's doing, it's building an emotional connection, and that's the key. Connection, time spent together, memories, creates memories. When Alison, my youngest daughter, was about 13, she wanted to go from shop to shop in Hemingway's and make a list of things she wanted for her birthday and for Christmas. So my wife said, she's not going to do that. She hates Hemingway. So I said, no, I love it. I'll do that on a Saturday morning. I'll walk around with it. So now I go, 3 hours. I went from shop to shop with Alison. We made a list of all the things that she did. You know, she still talks about that today. She's now 20 years of age. She'll still remember that. Why? Because it's a memory that you create. Because she knows the sacrifice that is for someone to spend 3 hours going from shop to shop. I could have been doing much better things than that, but I chose to. If you take the time to do that, that's the one thing. The other thing is that when you are away, make sure that you are able to connect with her in some way. So now it's easy, video call or whatever. And then before you go, make a chart. It can be a caterpillar or something of the days that you're away. And then every day she just color in one, and then daddy's coming home that day. And then make sure that day that you come home, that you either doing something on that day or the next day. Try, if it's possible with your schedule, to keep those 2 days clear so that you can say, okay, that's time with my wife and time with my daughter. And if you do that, those absent days, and your daughter will learn to understand that. You know, there was a stage where I traveled a lot. I'd go and speak at various places and stuff. But my daughters would be okay. I'd ask them, look, I've been asked to go and preach here or speak here and whatever. Is it okay? No, Dad, it's fun. Go. No, they love it when I go away. But I'll always make sure when I go to a B&B or whatever, wherever the people have put me up, then I'll do a video tour. I'll phone them on WhatsApp, a video call, and I'll show them, hey, check my room, check out this season. Because then what that does, it makes them part of it. And I'll send them pictures. Hey, check at the crowd, look at the people, look at this, check at me. And the guys normally that come with, they'll take photos and stuff, and then I'll send them, check at this thing. And then what that does, now if you send your daughter a picture, a thing, and they show it, and their mom shows her stuff and whatever, then it creates like, okay, I'm part of this. But if you never let her into that, it's like, no, this is my job, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And you at home, and it's a separate thing. That becomes, but if you include her, hey, check at this, look at this picture, look at this. She'll grow up with a love for the outdoors and hunting like you, and you'll probably find she'll go and hunt with you and probably end up shooting better things.
Yeah, she's the fact that it's been the most incredible experience. And But Steve, and this is where I wanted to touch on it as well, is that I sit here in a very fortunate but also unfortunate situation that I've been through what I've been through. But it's taught me to time manage a lot of my stuff, which has become one of my more important aspects of my life is time management, for my partner, for my daughter, for my mother, my brother, different relationships through.
Yes.
When you are hunting, I think this is an important thing for young professional hunters to understand, and for outfitters out there. I think if you are just honest with the individuals you're guarding, you're hunting for, whoever, and say, listen, I need an hour a day for my family, they will buy into that, which a lot of professional hunters don't do.
Yes.
Like you say, make them a part of it, take them for video. I only realized that when I was in a much better space. I started off this podcast with not introducing all the incredible things you have done, because I wanted to find out more about your story and where you've come from. But you've developed such a beautiful book that's incorporated a lot of lessons in it. And just a little bit, the glimpses that you sent me on WhatsApp, I've been very fortunate and to read. It's been an incredible. What are some of the lessons that professional hunters can start incorporating today in their routines while they're hunting, that you might think they might be helpful out there for them to become a better person, a better dad, a better...
Yeah. I think that the first, I think it is the first part of the book. Yeah, Radical Lessons for a Hunter. A lot of these were influenced by people that I've counseled over the years.
Okay.
And I think, and then recently I spoke to a chap who was a hunter, and he just talking to him, kind of like pushed me to get this book going. And I think that if you look at this, the book has got seven lessons, life lessons on each chapter, and then 7 motivational aspects, and then 7 devotions, if a person likes to read a devotion and stuff. So it helps them. But the key with this is that there's a lot of challenging questions. So each aspect has got a lot of challenging questions. How can you stay sharp? Focus and discipline are superpowers when it comes to hunting. Where do you need to be better focused? List actions that could sharpen your concentration. What habits might support staying disciplined? So what has happened with the book is I've tried to make it that, because I'm a very practical person. So if you read any of my books, they're very simple to read. A lot of people say I write like I speak, so it's very simple and down to earth. And it's so the aspect is that I want to give you a book that is going to help you become better at that. So radical dads, become a better dad. Radical marriage, improve your marriage. Radical parenting, improve your parenting. So a lot of my books are radical because the radical is an acrostic for relationship, attitude, discipline, being intentional, communication, action, and love. And so most of my books are developed around that concept. So I've got a lot of them are based on the radical. So I've got radical freedom, which is the prayer process I take people through, and then I've got overcoming rejection, overcoming depression, overcoming fear, anxiety, and worry. Rest. So the 4 things that disturb your rest: relationships, energy drainers, self-care, and talk. So I use a lot of acoustics in my things to help, because that's how my mind works. It helps you stay focused. So this book helps you, it challenges your thinking, and it challenges to kind of like set up things like that. I like what you said. I think that that's a brilliant way of doing it when you said that you say to them, I take an hour a day. Which made me think of many years ago, probably about before COVID actually, I was speaking to a hunter. They had come to me for marriage counseling. And that was the complaint, is that he was always away. He was away from home, and then they never heard from him, And I think that's, remember the love map. Your relationship with your your partner, with your daughter, those two crucial ones, and anybody else, will be dependent on your connection. So work on that connection. How can you build a better connection? The time spent together, communication, how well do you know the person, spending time with them. So if you say to them, listen, there is a time in our schedule that I've listed on the schedule as free time, and that simply because I need to have that time to connect with my family. It's a very important part of the thing. I don't think that there'll be anybody that would say to you, no, I don't want that as part of the schedule. No one will say that. Everybody will say, hey, that's cool. Now, they might not want to connect with their folks. They'll probably just, sleep or something. But I would do that. I do that. I don't say that, but I will excuse myself. If I'm sitting at breakfast, if I'm on a tour or something and I'm doing some talks and whatever, and I'm sitting at breakfast, I will finish up, or I might not even finish my breakfast, because I know that between now and the next thing I've got to do, there's not going to be much time. I say, can I please, I just need to contact my wife. I just need to chat to my wife. I just need to say how's it to my daughters. And everybody will say, go for it. Yeah. No one will say, no, finish your breakfast. No, we still want to talk. But even if a guy said that to me, I'll say to him, sorry, I hear what you say, but I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And if the guy doesn't invite me back, tough tacky, I don't care. Because my priority is my family, not this April, this or that. It's that family. Because that's my forever thing. Eh? This talking thing it's fluid. It can come and go. I'm not dependent on that. I want this forever. So I would say that work on that connection, work on that time spent together, work on trying to find ways that you can make sure that you stay connected to your family, to your wife and your kids or whatever. Because like I said before, the minute you start doing that, that invites them into your world and they become part of it, even though they are there and you are here. You can say, how excited is your daughter going to be if you say to her, check at this lodge, check at these animals, check at this. There's never a time when my daughters have said, I don't want to watch that, I don't want to see that. Even when I've taken a video of it and sent it to them and they've only watched it later, they'll always watch it and they'll say, hey, great, look at Dad, that's awesome. Because I started when they were young and I've cultivated that, they were always part of my ministry, always part of my life. I always try to incorporate them in it and stuff. So when I would be reading or studying and my girls were playing here, it would be okay for them to interrupt me. The only time they know that they couldn't is if I was on a phone call, or whatever. But if I'm working or something, they would always be there and I'd be okay with it. If I close, I'd say to them, I'm going to pray now or whatever. I'd close my door and they would know. But I'd say to them, if you need me, don't. And they have over time when I've been praying or reading and they've interrupted me and I'm okay with it. I've never said, no, hey, I'm busy. I'm talking to God. Leave me alone. No. Because what does that do? It then gives them a resentment between them and God. So you don't want to do that. So you're going to build up a resentment between your daughter and the hunting. She's going to not want to, I don't need you hunting. It took my dad away from me. Why would I want to do that? It's the worst thing ever, So if you incorporate and make it fun, this is what we do, this is our life, this is such, and your daughter becomes a part of it, and you include them in it, like you're doing with your wife now, you make her part of it.
It's I think for a lot of professional hunters, and especially youngsters coming through the ranks, I think one of the biggest things, and I found this early on in my career, is that we're too scared to upset the apple cart on kind of, we're always chasing the dollar tree, I call it. We don't want to upset the client because we want that nice tip at the end of the safari and all these sort of things. But having the client part of your ability to say to him, listen, I'm going to have to step away for an hour and stuff, it says so much for your character, and one, and number two, it also brings them into the frame a little bit, and they actually become a better understanding. But Steve, I wanted to touch quickly on based on men's mental health. What is your perception of depression?
I think it's a difficult thing to talk about because people don't talk about it. People don't understand it, and I think that we've been there hasn't been enough discussions about it, especially with men. So often, if you look at a lot of the stuff, it's often about women. Women, how to help a woman with depression. I think there's a lot of enlightenment now, and a lot more discussions and talks and stuff like that. But it still needs to happen more and more and more. It's still not okay, even for women sometimes, to say that they're not okay, because there's still a stigma attached to depression.
Negative one.
Negative, yes, yeah. So negative stigma attached to depression. The people don't like to talk about. Like I said earlier before, is I did some talks, and one of the talks that we advertised. We did a talk on my book on rest, and we did, I think, on the parenting one. And we did one on worry and fear. But when we advertised the depression one, no one signed up for it. And my book on overcoming depression is the book that has sold the least. Even though I've done talks on that. I did a talk at a church on depression and mental health. And I had that book available. No one bought the book.
Do you think it's something everyone goes through at some point in their life?
Yes, I do. I think it's different level, and obviously there's different depression. I think that there's clinical depression, which is more severe, and that's because with every disorder or disease or syndrome, there's a part of it that can only be dealt with through medication. So if you've got clinical depression, you probably need to be on medication, and that's something that people also don't like to talk about. Because they don't like medication. We shouldn't be on medication, whatever. And people have got misunderstandings and misconceptions about medication too, and stuff. I also do believe that we are over prescribed. I think there are other approaches that can be used to help people with depression. But that's why you need to be talking to someone that can understand and can help you to the best of your ability, and not be too quick to say, are you depressed? Take a tablet. Rather say, okay, I'll take a tablet for... So my theory is this. If you go to your doctor and you say to doctor, hey doc, I think I'm depressed. The doctor should say, okay, what's going on? Tell me why you think that. Say, okay, yeah, it does sound like you are depressed. So this is what I'm going to do. You're going to do a full body checkup, We're going to check your thyroid, we'll do some blood work. We're going to check and see if there's any other imbalances. I want you to go to a dietitian, because diet is a very important thing with me. I want you to do some exercise, because exercise is a very important thing with depression. And then here's a number of a counselor I want you to go and see. I want to put you on a mild antidepressant for 3 months, and I want you to sort all those things out. After 3 months, come and see me and let's talk. Okay, now you've got a balanced approach. It's preferable to be on medication and speak to someone at the same time, because you want to be able to get to the root cause of why you're depressed and help with coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms or whatever that you need to deal with, so that your depression can become, that you can manage it better and deal with it in healthy ways, as opposed to always spiraling up. If you've got someone that's helping you and walking alongside you and encouraging you, it makes it easier. But I think that there needs to be a lot more open discussions about depression and what men can do to help them and stuff like that. Yeah,
one of the interesting things for me is along this journey was the medicational side of things. I think once, I've always said, for me personally, being diagnosed with depression was probably the worst but best day of my life, because I made a decision there and then when I went to Riverview that I was going to dive so deep into myself and figure this whole thing out, exactly what it is. It changed my perspective on depression, because I never had the correct perspective. and also it allowed me the opportunity to really deep dive inside of myself and really figure out who I really am.
Yes.
Because you do. You have these back and forth conversations, and one of the interesting journeys I've been on is through medication. When I left Riverview, we were on Wellbutrin for some time, and together with Andrew, we had a couple of podcasts, and we really got into the understanding of it. And one of the things I figured out was the disconnection. So now we completely off all antidepressants, and we're more on a vitamin nutrient diet, and we just take natural vitamins, which is beautiful. So I look back at that and say, if I didn't know, or if I didn't have the opportunity to figure that all out, I wouldn't probably be sitting here today. I've had 2 failed suicide attempts, and it's a hard discussion to have with yourself. But I think conversations with yourself, books, I think we can definitely. We've got a tradition on the podcast about questions, and I'll ask you to do the same. But there was a question that was left: is if you had a superpower to have one positive impact on this earth, what would it be?
Positive impact on
The earth.
on the earth.
Yeah, well, population, people, earth, conservation, whatever.
Sure, that's a deep question.
They often are these questions. They would get easier.
I would like to be able to. I would like to be able to help people's relationships with God and themselves and others. Because a big thing for me is relationship with people, and I deal with that through marriages and parenting. And I would love to be able to impact as many people as I can to help them strive. And look, my biggest thing is moving your marriage from good to great. And so great in every aspect. So, I mean, even with your hunting, do you want to be a good hunter or great hunter? Do you want to have a good podcast or a great podcast? So I'd like to help as many people to become great at what they do, no matter what that is: relationships, marriages, children, parenting, their relationship with God, their prayer life, their Bible, whatever, writing. So I would like to, it would be amazing to be able to help people, and you don't have the time. So I can only see 7 people a day, 6 people a day. If I could see 12 people a day and have a positive impact on them, and see their marriages thrive and grow and they become better at every aspect of their lives, that would be.
Steve, that's absolutely beautiful. I love that. But yeah, for myself, I know you're a busy man, so I want to say thank you so much for taking out the time, coming down and having a chat. Thank you so much for this incredible book. Where can people find your books?
Well, here's one that you can give to one of your listeners if you want. I don't know how you'd like to do that.
Yeah.
But with each one of the chapters, you'll see there's there's like a positive motivational message with a card, so the runner's life is better when I'm running, or when you're running. The hunting one is quite a nice one. It says there, life is too short, call in late and go hunting. I like that. And then there are 2 types of people in the world: those who hunt and those who are wrong. So they're quite. So there's a pack of cards for someone if you'd like to give, and then the book. So that would be. But I mean, my details are on the back of the book.
Okay.
But yeah, they can get a hold of me through my phone, WhatsApp me, or my email. whatever.
We'll put all the details below in the podcast. I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. Because it's awesome. But Steve, once again, I can't thank you enough. I hope we have many more of these discussions.
Yeah, anytime you'd love to. I'd love to be on. Awesome.
I love having your perspective on things and you telling your story and how positive impact it's had on many, many people. I know a couple of my friends that have been to see you. So firstly, thank you so much for everything you've done. And yeah, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Thank you.